Ecumenism. I know we have mentioned it at least one other time, but what exactly is it, and how important is it to the life of faith? These are the questions we will be discussing in today's session as we take a look at a significant calling in history and in the life of the Christian Church known as the Ecumenical Movement. But first, to start out, let's begin what this may be unfamiliar word ecumenism. Ecumenism is an English noun that comes from the Greek word oikumene, which loosely translated means the whole inhabited world, or the household of God. Early on, oikumene was used to mean literally all people everywhere. Over time, however, the word became shorthand for all Christians everywhere. Today, ecumenism is synonymous with the fullness and unity of the Church Universal, comprising Christians of all nations as gathered and guided by the Holy Spirit. So ecumenism is now a term we use to mean Christian unity. Yet, how did it all begin to mean Christian unity? Like so many things, a complete and definite beginning point is hard to clearly state. The genesis of ecumenism coming to mean Christian unity is a mix of multiple, separate and somewhat unrelated events that all came together to shift the culture of Christianity and begin a movement now known as the Ecumenical Movement. André Bimelet, Professor Emeritus of the University of Strasbourg and also part of the Institute for Ecumenical Research, suggests that this shift occurred due to the profound social changes resulting from industrialization and Western colonial expansion that occurred during the 19th century. These social changes awakened an awareness to the divisions within the churches which seemed inconsistent with the confession of the Church as one, holy, Catholic and Apostolic. Led by students and lay people, people of various faith communions began to meet in groups for prayer and fellowship. During this period, various groups were organized that brought together Christians of various faith communions. The Evangelical Alliance, the YMCA and the World Student Christian Federation were all founded during this time as a result of this shift towards unity. By the end of the 19th century, there were many various streams and expressions of organizations gathering across divisions in hopes of working towards some form of unity. The streams of all these expressions were not connected until 1910, when the first ever World Missionary Conference convened in Edinburgh. This conference, while mostly attended by Protestant faith communions, was a monumental gathering for the way it brought together various faith communions that had broken off from one another. It is often marked as the beginning of the formalized ecumenical movement. Yet the connection was short-lived as out of this conference. It was determined the work of Christian unity had four distinct streams. First, joint missionary work throughout the whole world. Second, promoting peace, which proved to be difficult and important work over the next few years following 2 world wars. Third, joint engagement in social justice, ethics and political activism known as life and work. Fourth, exploring and answering doctrinal questions of unity known as faith and order. It is important to note that while the World Missionary Conference brought together mostly Protestant faith communions, the Protestant churches were not the only ones interested and driven towards reconciliation and communion. In 1920, an encyclical from the Patriarchate of Constantinople expressed a desire for worldwide communion of churches, bringing the Orthodox churches into the ecumenical movement. The Orthodox churches became involved in streams of life and work and faith and order. Following the 1920 encyclical and the joining of the Orthodox churches all the way up until 1945, the Ecumenical Movement began to take shape as the various streams met individually throughout the world, beginning to answer the questions of what it might look like to express Christian unity through joint missionary work, promoting peace and reconciliation, being engaged in social justice work, and by agreeing to joint doctrines, each group working in their little silos. However, in 1948, the various streams converged yet again and formed the World Council of Churches, also known as the WCC. It was the goal of the formation of the WCC that this multilateral structure would be replaced with a conciliar structure for member churches. What ended up happening was that over time the WCC became more of a forum for meetings and deliberations for ecclesial communities and movements of widely differing origins. The WCC condensed the work of ecumenism from 4 streams into just 2, faith and order, and life and work. The WCC has met every 6 to 8 years since the organizational meeting in 1948, continuing to develop doctrinal consensus and joint mission and ministry amongst its 349 member churches that represents 560 million Christians from 110 countries. 1965, at the conclusion of Vatican II, the Catholic Church also joined the Ecumenical Movement by proposing common prayer, dialogue on matters of doctrine, and collaboration in service to the world. While not an official member of the WCC, Catholic Church began participating in Faith and Order and created a special agency for ecumenical affairs known as the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity. Following Vatican II, the Church Universal on an institutional level shifted away from past divisions towards an active missional and doctrinal unity. Yet, the vision of the Ecumenical Movement was not just at an institutional level. Remember, it began as a movement among students and lay people. At the local and regional level around the world around 1945, Christians began to gather for worship and prayer across faith communions. Bimele claims that such work was sustained by the conviction that the unity of the Church is primarily the work of the Holy Spirit, and thus a spiritual reality given by God. This led to the development of regional, national, and some continental council of churches whose focus was to foster the ecumenical movement and spirit within their area. Many of these still exist around the world and possibly even within your community. Each act of ecumenism, whether formalized in an institutional body or the informal gathering of lay people, gives witness the spiritual reality of unity. That is our gift from God, and thus is an integral part of our faith journeys.